and I'm no longer muted. I can't hear my producer, Dean. So if things seem a bit off, that's probably why. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Great, and I can hear you. So welcome to the Atheist Consulate Cape Town, Sunday afternoon, Meet the Atheist. You were on the way to telling me what you prefer to be called. Do I call you the Kentucky Atheist?
You can just call me Joe.
Great, let's do that. So, Joe, you are known on YouTube as the Kentucky Atheist, am I right?
Yes.
Brilliant. How long have you been doing that?
Coming up on 2 years.
Wow, that's a long time to. That's success. That is success. So, what made you? Tell us about your backstory. Were you always non-religious? Did you grow up religious? And how did your deconversion happen, if it happened at all? If you were not always a free thinker or an atheist, what do you like to identify as atheist, secular, humanist?
I'm an atheist. Yeah. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, which is an extremely religious area in the United States. The primarily Southern Baptist is the branch of Christianity preferred, I guess. I grew up in a very religious household at that, and went to church and stuff as a kid and all the way up through my teens, and was a believer up until I was about 25. I was actually a young earth creationist fundamentalist. So everybody here pretty much is in this part of the country. I don't know of any church in this area that teaches anything other than that, actually. But maybe they do today, but growing up they didn't. But it was whenever I went away to college to that I started to learn things that contradicted the things that I'd been taught in my faith, and I began to. I'd always kind of had questions about those things and thought, this doesn't seem right, and I was kind of back and forth about, I'm not sure if I believe all that's true, but I usually still stuck to, like, I believe God, and I thought everybody that believed in God was a young earth creationist. I thought everybody believed the same thing. It's a sheltered life in rural Kentucky, I guess. But
So you weren't homeschooled. You.
No, I went to public school. In fact, my public school taught intelligent design in biology class.
Okay, so it's not a big jump from ID or intelligent design to young earth. I mean, that's a very small jump. But it's interesting that you say you started thinking or were prompted into perhaps pursuing the questions that were already there when you went to college. Now, that makes me think that perhaps the creationists have a point when they say don't go to college, because things happen when you go to college. What would you say to that?
No, I think education very much is the enemy of fundamentalism. The two just aren't very compatible. It was actually something I'd seen on TV when I was in college about humans sharing 98% of their DNA with chimpanzees, and when I first seen it, I just kind of brushed it off, and then I watched that video though and got to thinking about it, and talked to some friends about it, and that put me on the path of just looking for answers to things, and I found out that was true, but it didn't immediately cause me to just be like, oh well, none of it's true anymore. That made me question other things that I'd been told, and as I looked into them, not to disprove it, actually to back up my faith, I went looking for answers, and everywhere I turned, I found either the things were a complete lie, or they were not supported enough to be making those type of claims.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was that traumatic? Did you find that traumatic to go through that phase of questioning? So obviously this was a period of time. Go ahead. So was it traumatic? How did you deal with that emotionally? How did you process that?
Well, at first I was more curious than anything. I was in college, and um, it it gave me something to really look into. And then after the religious claims, I became so much more interested in the universe and physics and biology and any number of sciences. And so it really sent me on a path where I spent a few years just absorbing as much information as I could about the world around me.
So the college that you attended, was it religious, and were the courses that you enrolled in sort of exploring the things that you were interested in as well? Did these converge? And how did that work? Because I do know that there are things like very religious colleges where I chatted to an author of Ken Daniels. He wrote a book, Why I No Longer Believe, and he attended a Christian university where he was taught Christian engineering.
Yeah. Well, Kentucky famously has Kentucky Christian University, which is a big deal. But no, I went to Ohio University, and a non-religious school, and I majored in computer science. But after I became a little more curious about things, I began to take classes in physics and various other things that I just wanted to learn everything I could about the world after that. But no, the university was very much, in fact, I don't know of anyone ever mentioning anything to do with religion in a classroom at university. So.
Okay. So when did you say the A word to yourself for the first time? Can you remember?
Yeah, actually. So there's a separate angle that this story goes on. Not everything was great. I was a drug addict for a number of years and ended up locked up in jail. I went to prison. I had a lot of tough lessons to learn, and I was in jail in a little tiny town in Kentucky, and this nun that taught it's such a crazy story. This nun taught
Go ahead, sounds like
she taught GED classes there, but I had no need for that really, but I had asked one of the guys in her GED class, will you see if I can come down there to that class? Just like maybe she can give me a math book.
GED, that's the general education diploma. Is that okay?
Yes.
Just for South Africa, can I just explain to our South African viewers? That's basically the American high school curriculum.
It's an equivalent diploma. Instead of graduating high school, you can test out of it essentially, and
that's yeah.
So,
okay, so you then wanted to enroll in these GED classes. So I'm assuming you was this while you were at before or after college? I just want to get the chronology right, because I want to circle back around to asking if you're willing to talk about it, to just perhaps tell us a little bit about your addiction if you're willing to talk about it.
Oh, so no, sure, no.
This was while you were still a Christian. You were still a believer.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now you're enrolling in this GED class with a nun. While you're in jail.
Yeah. So I said maybe she can bring in a math book, just give me something to do or whatever. And she said sure, and she brought a book called A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem by Wayne Dyer. And this book talked about all these other religions of the world and how positive thinking was beneficial in a number of ways. And it part of it, though, described creation stories from other accounts and the way that they viewed this type of thing. And I remember thinking, well, Christianity has no way to say who's right. Like any one of these could be right or none of them at all. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I don't believe this anymore. I just don't. I had plenty of time to sit and think about it. And I just decided I don't believe any of this is true. And that's when I said, in fact, there was a preacher that came in the cell and said, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "No, I'm an atheist." And that was the first time. So
how did the preacher respond to that?
You need to we need to get your soul saved today, son. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So what is it like to, or did you ever think, I'm thinking about the problem of addiction, because it's something that I hear about quite often. And I find it interesting that one of the solutions that religious people often give to addiction, Jesus can save you from that too, but I don't see much evidence of that. So I presume that you are no longer struggling with addiction, which is and
I'm no longer actively addicted. I've been in recovery for over 10 years now.
Yeah. And how has your atheism or being religious hampered or contributed to having these problems? Do you think that being non-religious gives one better tools to cope with the struggles of addiction than being religious?
I think that a lot of times addiction has to do with your ability to cope with the things that are presented to you in life. And so in given that, I think that religion does nothing to prepare you for that, and in fact may actually make those things worse in some cases. I'm not saying religion is the cause of anything to do with my addiction, but it offers no solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had discussions with so I work with young people, and therefore I have some experience of talking to people who struggle with addiction. And what I find is that while religion might not be the cause, it doesn't really contribute much to the solution, and it can hamper the journey to healing. Because what I find is that young people will say, "Well, my church told me just pray." And I've prayed, and that the same goes for other mental health problems like depression or anxiety. So if you pray and it doesn't work and you don't feel better, then you're a failure, and that sort of becomes this snowball effect. So yeah, I think we're on the same page. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, I mean, I think that well, one of the things that relates to is there's like a number of faith-based recovery centers, and I'm actually kind of I've been working on a project for a long time now that I'll eventually put together that talks about some of the dangers of that. And how is that going? It talks about some of the dangers of that, and uncovers that they've caused the death of a lot of people. Actually, the faith-based centers are usually, of course, state-based, so that the court system can send people to their open beds, and they get people in there, and as soon as they make a mistake, they kick them out on the street. You know, when they miss prayer or they don't have their shirt tucked in or something like that. And for a recovering addict, having the little bit of support system that you've built jerked out from under you is a dangerous thing. And people start using again, and after being clean for a period of time, they end up overdosing and dying. And
Yeah.
this has been something that's happened way more than anybody should let it.
And
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, on a side note, also in the state of Kentucky, a pastor can act as a counselor legally, like a professional counselor,
without any training as a counselor,
without any training whatsoever. Yeah.
Wow. Well, please keep us posted, because I'd very much like to see the work that you've done on that project, because I don't think there's enough research about faith-based and addiction treatment centers. And I think that is a can of worms that needs to be opened up. But I want to talk to you about something special that you guys have in Kentucky. I've heard about the Ark Encounter. I'd love to go there sometime myself. Have you been?
I actually have never been to the Ark Encounter.
Shame on you.
It's not very far from me either. It's pretty close, but I've seen video after video of people covering it, and I've watched all the interviews with Ken Ham and Bill Nye and all that stuff. So I'm very familiar with what's in it, and of course I know the story that they're teaching very well. But the Ark Encounter tricked a small Kentucky town essentially into letting them come there, and they promised. Williamstown, Kentucky is a very small, poor town in rural Kentucky, and they promised them there was going to be all these visitors, and it was going to bring all this money to their town, and they should give them all these discounts in the form of tax rebates. And so the city agreed to do that, thinking it was going to bring a large tourism crowd. Ken Ham and his people promised a minimum of 2 million visitors per year, which never happened. And then on top of that, they started essentially bribing local schools. Now, for legal reasons, I'll say that it wasn't a bribe, but they allowed local schools to bring groups of kids there for free, whereas they usually charge like $40 a person. And they put kids in an auditorium and tell them the Earth's 6,000 years old, and man walked with dinosaurs, and that evolution is false. They say these things and have them repeat after them as they say them. And there's videos of this out there, lots of them. But it's just, when I seen that, combined with the fact that Kentucky's already an incredibly poor state, and they're essentially ripping off taxpayers, and they've been through a number of court cases over this. But it's one of those things that just disturbs me deeply, that they're lying to children at what's supposed to be like a theme park, but is really a religious incest and genocide park.
And then make basically using bribery and all sorts of, because I follow American politics somewhat, and I did follow the whole setup that you're talking about, and I suspect if somebody had the courage to do a deep dive, and if the legal system was perhaps a little bit more efficient. Where's efficiency when you need it? Hey, there might be, as you said, there have been court cases. So it's quite astonishing to think that this is happening in a first world country, where children are being actively lied to. So if I play devil's advocate a little bit,
yeah,
what would you say? What would you say to somebody who says, "What harm does it do to teach people that the Earth is 6,000 years old and that we were created? What's the harm? You know, really, I mean, what would you say to somebody saying that?
I would say that stifling the education of kids in order to fulfill your religious itch is a bad thing, and that it endangers everyone's future. We depend on the next generation to be brought up with the best information possible to one day lead the world. And the fact of the matter is that one of the major problems we have in the United States is one of the major problems, not the only problems, but it's the religious right and Christian nationalism, and they have shown that they're willing to step on anybody in order to get their ideology into the heads of children. And so not only should you not just be lying to children for no reason about how the world works. I mean, there's not a reason to do that, but they're disguising it as educational, and Kentucky taxpayers are paying for it. And that's really where I have a problem. I don't think that that's even legal.
Whatever happened to church-state separation, which I thought was something that you had in the United States? So obviously, people
He
should
calls
know
it a theme park.
Which is absurd. I mean, but I'm a little bit disappointed though, Joe, that you have never been there. I would have loved to see your pictures with dinosaurs. I mean, really, that'd be really. Maybe you should go.
Well, I will be going very soon, and you're welcome to join me if you like.
It's a bit far out, but I'd love to see your videos because something that I can perhaps just say. Experiencing something firsthand is different from seeing video. So I would love to. I hope you'll do something on your YouTube channel, and I'd like to, about your upcoming visit. Do you plan to protest, or will you be going incognito? Will they know about you? Will they even allow you in?
They already know we're coming.
Okay.
So July 6th this year, there will be a large protest out in front of the Ark Encounter in Williamstown, Kentucky. We've organized a amazing group of speakers, including Aaron Ra, Him at Meta, The Skeptic, Godless Engineer, Secular Rarity. I just added Dr. Jay Bundy, evolutionary biologist, to the list. We have a group of speakers, and we have already expect quite a crowd to show up, honestly. And I actually have some. I will have some free passes to the Ark Encounter while we're there, so nobody has to give them any money or anything. And so there will be some content that comes out of it. The channel Pang Burn, which is known for doing a lot of political and religious debates on their channel, been around for a long time, actually gave us the money to really get everything in place and to organize this whole thing, to pay for speakers to come in and all that stuff. And they're doing some stuff across the United States, helping pay for atheist activism events, and yeah, I'm glad they helped us because we needed it.
Well, that's brilliant, and please give my regards to Aaron Ra. He was in South Africa in 2020, just before COVID struck, and I did a little interview with him. So please give him my regards. But that's fantastic, and I will talk to Dean. We must definitely make a plan to give you guys some publicity, because I think the Ark Encounter has sort of, it's been going for at least a decade now, and people have sort of gotten used to the idea, and maybe we need more activism to make people aware of what is happening.
So there's a group in Kentucky called the Tri-State Freethinkers, and they actually have hosted a protest at the Ark Encounter every year on the anniversary of its opening since it opened, minus a couple years in the early 2020s. And they didn't want to do it this year. It's just been something they've been doing for a number of years. They wanted to wait until the 10th anniversary to have another one. And I said, no, we should still be doing that thing. And so I'm working with them as well. They're, and they've already done it and have the have the layout and everything of how to pull off a successful event there. So, yeah, but they've been doing it every year on the anniversary of its opening. The Ark Encounter opened on 7/7 to coincide with Genesis 7:7, which I believe is the inundation verse.
Well, we wish you clear skies and no, may it not rain. May you have a good day. Well, that's something interesting to look forward to. I want to circle around back a little bit to your personal story. So you deconverted. You told the pastor that you're an atheist. You got your life back on track. How did your being non-religious affect your friendships and family relationships? I'm sure you have something interesting to tell us about that.
Well, again, Kentucky is a very religious place, so people weren't and still aren't very accepting of me being an atheist or being so outspoken about it. Even friends who don't disagree with the things, like I have close friends who won't support my channel or what I do in any way because I'm an atheist. But it's and my family has been completely. I mean, it's not that they haven't been understanding to some extent, but like my mom still tries to talk me into believing in God, whatever that means.
Well, I'm glad that they still accept you and that they still talk to you. Have you ever felt so being a South African, we have a particular idea in our minds of what it's like to live in Kentucky. And have you ever felt threatened? Have you ever received physical threats to your physical safety? Because, so forgive me for my bias and the ideas, but I have this hillbilly type where people can get sort of riled up and they can sort of be like a little bit loose cannony. So how does that affect you? Do people recognize you? Have you ever been accosted in the street and say, "Are you the atheist guy?" What
I haven't had problems. Well, I've received death threats on my channel, but I haven't, like, the locals, a few of them know, what I do or whatever, but even before I had the channel, I spoke out against a lot of these things, and had been in a few situations that were not pretty, but never really assaulted or anything like that. Threats of it, sure, but not. Well, yeah,
it's bad enough to experience threats. So I want to ask you, if you could be given, let's say there was an election and Elon Musk handed out $1 million checks and you got one of those checks, what would you do in regards activism if you could get hold of $1 million? What would you? So I'm picking your brain here because I'm hoping for the same thing. What would you do? A rally? Would you put up a billboard? Would you do visits to schools? Would you be allowed even to? What access do you have to, for example, to schools? Could you go and do a talk about evolution at your local high school, for example?
Yeah. I don't. I mean, they might. I'm not an expert in anything, so I don't know that they would let me speak on evolution, and they certainly won't let me speak about religion in a school. But I think I would invest that money into more activism, to more um, activism on the ground, events, and I would love to see Eastern Kentucky have some sort of conference and atheist group, which none of that would take $1 million, but uh, yeah, I would invest in secular education projects and traveling around to places like the one that I'm from that need a place for people who don't believe in these things to be heard. And I think that in the South, in the Bible Belt, in the United States, atheists and people who claim no religion, they feel feel singled out, and like, other than my girlfriend, I don't know of any another atheist where I live. I'm sure there are some, but to have places and community for the people that feel that way would be number one on my list of things to do.
I can identify with what you're saying, because I think we have many similarities I live in rural South Africa, and it's the same. And I want to ask you, I'm glad that you mentioned that you know only one other atheist, and that's somebody that you're intimate with. I wonder what would happen if one had the resources to say, all right, everybody who has doubts on this day, come to this place, whether how many people would actually show up, and how many faces you would recognize. Do you think there are people in your community who are probably non-believers, but they just don't think about it, they just go through the motions because of the societal effects of being an open atheist?
Yes, I think that there's probably all over the place. I would say there's a large number of people who associate a negative connotation with the term atheist, and I don't care what word people use, but if you're interested in secular information and not everything having some religious basis behind it, that's the kind of thing that I think that a lot more people are interested in than we know about, especially in these fundamentalist bastions, so to speak. I think there's a lot of people who aren't buying that story.
What do you think can atheists do to give people the courage to speak their minds? Do you think there is something we can do?
Well, that's actually the whole reason that I started a YouTube channel is I'm not the most well-spoken person, and I don't pretend to be. But I try to show people that no matter what, you can speak up and talk about these things. If you see harm being done, whether it's in the name of religion or anything else, you should feel comfortable speaking about that. And if you want to, you can. You don't have to. Sure, everybody who starts a YouTube channel would like to be the next Aaron Ra or Matt Dillahunty or something like that. But the fact of the matter is that every person who goes out and speaks up about these things is helping, because you don't know which perspective on this thing is going to reach which person. And I've found that a number of people have told me, hey, I watched your YouTube channel. Now I want to start a YouTube channel, and I want to talk about these things. And so I think that really me doing this poorly gives a other people the confidence to speak up as well.
I like that idea of even those of us who don't think that we're particularly good at communicating, there's a place, there's a voice. Each one of us has a voice, and I think the diversity of voices is essential and necessary. So next thing I want to ask you is, you were in your mid-20s when you deconverted. How would your life have been different if you had exposure to these ideas, perhaps when you were younger? What would you say to your younger self if they saw your YouTube channel today? How do you think that would have changed the course of your life? If not that we can go back, but just hypothetically for fun.
I would tell myself to keep asking questions. When I was a kid, at 5 years old in Sunday school, they were teaching about Noah's Ark. And I asked my Sunday school teacher, how did they get all those animals on the boat? And they told me if I wanted to ask questions that I would end up going to hell. And as a 5-year-old. So, yeah, I mean, so you can imagine in rural Kentucky, the church is involved in schools and government and everything. And they've tried to do this in bigger places, but in some of these rural areas, they've been more successful. So it would have changed my life greatly to not have that always being threatened with hell and taught wrong things about the world. That I don't know where I would probably have a second degree at this point had I not been raised that way. I had a lot of catching up to do.
That is so important, that what you said now, the barriers that especially that fundamentalist type of religion cause to education it's mind-boggling. I don't think that the world can afford it. Have you come across those characters who believe that we should not pay attention to something like climate change because the world was made to be destroyed? Is that something that's alive and well in your community?
Sure. I've actually had local people tell me that we don't need to worry about climate change because only God can end the world, and the world will end when God wants it to. So we don't need to worry about those things. Now my response is, well, what about like your children? Even if you're not going to end the world, don't you want them to have a world that's clean and safe for them to grow up in? And they pretty much stick to, well, it's whatever God wants to do, which, yeah, is a dangerous position to take on something so important.
Absolutely. So I'm presuming that you did mention Christian nationalism. I'm presuming that Kentucky is a fairly red state, and that Christian nationalism is alive and well.
Yeah. Kentucky is well. So how to explain this? So Christian nationalism is obviously a very right-wing idea in the United States, and Kentucky is a very red state. We had a supermajority of Republicans in our Congress, but we had a Democratic governor because we have a couple of large cities, Louisville, and these cities, because Kentucky has so much rural area, a city has a lot of voters in it compared to the surrounding areas. So we end up with Kentucky having a Democratic governor, but a supermajority of Republicans in Congress.
That is interesting. So your activism, is it mainly against or in the field of creationism, or do you have other topics of interest? For example, teaching critical thinking, or we've just touched upon the political impact of religious beliefs. Do you have any other pet projects that you like to focus on in your activism?
I mean, I do primarily focus on the claims of creationists just because it's what I have the most experience with. But I talk about a number of religious and political issues. I don't the I don't necessarily tell people like that you should be an atheist or whatever, but to practice skepticism, to ask questions and look for answers. That's the best thing you can do. Don't just accept. If something sounds too crazy to be true, then go look it up. Go find out.
Yep.
Skeptic.
You say go find out. Do you have a go-to playlist that you would like to introduce people to? So to get back to that $1 million, if I had access to that kind of money, I would like to print little leaflets, little like credit card type things that I would like to give to every single school child with just 5 or 6 YouTube channels on it. That I'd say, go and check out these guys or TikToks. Who would your go-to sources of information be? Your top 5 or top 10, and particularly who had a great influence on shaping your thinking?
Well, Aaron Ra shares a lot of the same experiences that I had growing up, and he's an excellent science communicator and educator. So that would definitely be there. And I mean, I think probably a lot of people would have the same on this list of atheist creators, just because we're not a huge community, of course. But I think people like Forrest Valaka, who promote science and critical thinking, are most important. Matt Dillahunty, of course, is all about logic and how to talk about these things. And I think those are all skills that are necessary if you apply. I want to say atheism, but that's not really a thing. They're great skills to have for anyone, actually. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what's your, when you're not engaged in activism, what do you do for fun? Do you also keep snakes and weird things like, well, to me it's weird. What do you do for fun when you, or is being involved in activism your idea of fun?
I'm kind of a computer nerd. I spend a lot of time working with different groups that to try and help addicts get into recovery programs or detoxes, or and I spend a lot of time talking about addiction and how it affects not just the person but their entire family.
That's amazing. Then what are your ideas about using AI to educate and inform? Do you think perhaps we'll get to a point where AI will be the new religion? That's a deeply philosophical question, I suppose. What are your ideas about that, being a computer nerd?
I think that AI has several applications where it's useful, and but based on the way that AI works, it essentially pulls information from all over the place, from many resources. So AI is just as likely to give you a wrong answer as any other person. And so I think that we're kind of on a dangerous place as far as that goes, because people think, well, AI, that it must know everything. I just did a debate the other day where the person I was debating ended the conversation. Their whole closing argument was telling us what AI told them was the answer to these things, and of course, it reinforced what they were trying to get it to say about their religious stance. So
Yeah.
AI is a great tool. No, you shouldn't be getting all of your advice from AI, though.
So tell me more about this. I was going to ask you about it. Do you do public debates? Was this an online debate? Was it a public debate? Um,
Not usually, but I'm honestly, I don't usually concern myself with arguing with Christians. It's just not a fruitful task. I would rather interact with the atheist community on YouTube itself, and support that than to spread the silly stuff that the creationists say. But I have been doing a few debates leading up to the Ark Encounter protest with creationists, just to kind of promote that. That's the idea, anyway.
well, that's interesting.
I'm not a debater, by the way.
Well, there's debating and then there's debating. I personally prefer the more conversational style of just having a conversation than the formal debate style. It's not anything I think it's more productive to just have conversations. But so what is your go-to question that you ask creationists to try and debunk what they believe? What do you think? Do you think it's the idea that we share 98% of our DNA with what they see as beneath animals that are beneath us? I mean, that I'm not sure that they recognize us as animals to begin with. What do you think is the greatest barrier to convince a creationist? What is it that makes it so hard for them to accept evolution?
Well, I think that first of all, your religious beliefs aren't a choice. That either you're convinced something's true or you're not. And I think the biggest problem that creationists face is getting past the indoctrination that they were raised with. And I don't think there's any one subject that benefits the creationists. Now, of course, a lot of these debates center around evolution and abiogenesis and things like that. And I comfortably talk about those things, but I think that the most important thing that I put forward to them during the debates is that it doesn't matter even if those things aren't true. It does nothing to support your claim about creationism or even the Christian God, for that matter. And I always put that right up front and center in all my conversations, that we can talk about evolution if you want, and I'll do my best to have that conversation. But even if evolution is false, it does absolutely nothing for your claims. So showing that they're irrational themselves is kind of the angle that I like to take at it.
Have you ever found that there's a big overlap between flat Earth beliefs and creationists? Do you find there's an overlap there?
Unfortunately, yes. It seems to be something that goes hand in hand. And I don't think that I would say that most creationists are flat earthers, but I think most flat earthers are creationists, which
I think that's
may be actually worse.
Yeah. Would you like to speak to Ken Ham personally?
Yes.
What would you say to Ken Ham? If you had 10 minutes with Ken Ham, what would you say to him?
Oh boy. I think that the thing that I would say to Ken Ham is that I don't care what you believe. It's the things that you're doing with that belief that I find harmful. And AIG and Ken Ham have very much gotten into homeschooling children here in recent years, and it's a thing that's really growing quickly. And I think the best thing that I could share with a person like Ken Ham about that is just my own story of how that's a harmful thing.
Yeah. I was thinking of your 5-year-old self asking a very valid and legitimate question about how did they get all those animals on this wooden boat. And I would just like to ask Ken Ham, why is it so difficult to give 5-year-olds with very valid and legitimate questions, why is it so difficult to give them honest answers? Because if you're afraid to answer 5-year-olds honestly, then surely there's a bit of a problem with your with your ideology. That's something that I'd like to ask Ken Ham about that. Well, I'd have many questions, but that would be one.
Yeah, I think that it's very telling that that they target children. And I mean, AIG very much, and there's other creationist organizations involved in that too, but AIG very much has made it clear that their target is children.
Yeah.
And
to me, that's criminal. And in Kentucky, add to that they're using taxpayers' money to misinform and to mislead. I just want to ask you as well about intelligent design, because intelligent design is sort of in my mind, it's a very small jump to go from intelligent design to creation, because intelligent design, I don't see that there's a difference between intelligent design and creationism. It's maybe the, what do you say to that? Did you?
Intelligent design is a more vague way of teaching creationism without getting into the specifics of the doctrine and dogma of the Bible. Intelligent design is a God the tinkerer story where God has a hand in however it happened. You know, they leave a lot of things ambiguous that way to whatever your religious fundamentalist belief may be, you can get under intelligent design. I think that's kind of the idea with it.
Of creationism and intelligent design, which of the two do you think is more insidious and more dangerous?
Intelligent design.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking leading questions, because I grew up in the Calvinist fundamentalist tradition, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was taught intelligent design. I think intelligent design is creationism for people with scientific understanding of science, because intelligent design just sort of pushes back a little bit. It just sort of skips the part where God creates Adam and Eve out of clay. They sort of, and I think that's very dangerous. Do you find that people go from creationism to intelligent design, and that they find that sort of a safe space? And do you think that's something we could perhaps, as educators and science educators, perhaps should we be more comfortable with moving people away from creationism into accepting at least intelligent design, and that maybe at least it's sort of a push in the right direction? What do you think about that?
I don't know. No, no, I wouldn't agree with that being a good idea, because I feel like intelligent design hides a lot of its intentions. And intelligent design was crafted in a way to sneak it into a science classroom. And we should be teaching science in those classrooms. And that, in fact, I think intelligent design, teaching it in a school, especially with children who are already exposed to an amount of indoctrination, in fact, may be the thing that pushes them into fundamentalism or even fanaticism. Yeah. So
that's true. Yeah, yeah, yep. So you have your work cut out for you, and
we all do.
some of us have greater battles than others. I'm sure that there are many people who appreciate your work. I'm going to ask Dean if he could put up a banner. So I'm not wearing my reading glasses, so I can't see this fine print on the screen. So I don't know if he's posted anything about your channel, where people can go to find you. Are you comfortable? If people, are you on Facebook? So okay, you see, I can't see that. I can't see that. Please read it out loud for me.
The Kentucky Atheist. You can find me at the Kentucky Atheist on YouTube and all social media. I'm not on Twitter, so don't look there. But everywhere else, if you search for the Kentucky Atheist, you'll find me.
Okay, so if I type the Kentucky Atheist into my Facebook, because I'm still on Facebook, I've also left Twitter. I will not go there. Then I will be able to connect with you. And are you open to chatting with people and connecting with people on social media?
Yeah, very much so. I'm open to speak with anyone about any subject that they want to talk about. Although I may not be the best person to ask any subject.
I see you, Eastern Kentucky. Great,
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm going to follow you. I've just clicked the button, so you will see me following you. It was very nice to chat to you. And we might have to catch up after the 6th of July, once you've had your big event. And perhaps, who knows, maybe the great man Ken Ham himself will come out and give a little bit of a handshake. Let's see if we can get some footage of that. Thank you very much. It was great fun. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Oh. No, thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
It was a great pleasure. And watch this space. We're definitely going to have to catch up after the 6th. And hopefully there will be some footage of that. In the meantime, stay safe. Yeah, you wanted to say? Go ahead.
We'll have a professional recording crew there, so yeah, it will be. It will all be covered. The whole event, the whole weekend is recorded.
Brilliant. We can't wait to get the feedback. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to those watching now and in future. Let's do this again after the 6th of July. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.